Welcome to another edition of 10 Count. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Michael Montero and Doug Fischer. Guys, we were all ringside for the Battle of Belasco this past Friday night. Jesus Soto Karass and Yoshihiro Kamegai fought to a draw. Doug, we were on the call. This fight, I don't know if it's Gaddy Ward, Karass Castillo. I don't know if it's going to go down in the annals. I don't know if it wins Fight of the Year. But isn't it refreshing to have a fight that actually delivered on its promise?
Oh, it's beautiful, and it was brutal, and that's exactly what we wanted. That's what we expected. And it is really special when guys have already given so much of themselves. I mean, Jesus Soto Karass has been a professional boxer for 15 years, and he's been in with so many tough guys, top 10 contenders, undefeated prospects, and up-and-comers. And he's been in so many ring wars, I can't name them all. We've all seen, if you've been following boxing for 10 years, you've seen him at least once or twice in there spilling blood. And if you've been following boxing for the past 4 or 5 years, you're aware of Yoshihiro Kamegai. And maybe you saw his U.S. television debut against Jorge Silva on Fox Sports 1. And that was a draw, and it was a rough and tumble 10 rounds. Or a lot of folks became aware of him when he took Robert the Ghost Guerrero 12 brutal rounds at StubHub. And if you're paying attention, when Japanese fighters travel to America, they don't come to lay down. They come to fight. And there's a culture in Japan where you don't back down, and there's a culture in Mexico where prize fighting is concerned where you don't take a backward step. You bring it. And but both guys would have been forgiven had they eased their way into this war. I mean, even the first bout between Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward, it really didn't heat up till like the 3rd or 4th round. Yeah. Veterans are expected to have, a feeling out round or a warm-up round. And Soto Karass just set the tone. He came out and nailed Kamegai with a 1-2. Yeah. And Kamegai came back all night, and they went tit for tat. There was no holding. There was no lulls in the action. There was no coasting. And they let it all hang out in the 10th round. And what I really like about this fight is we never really needed to reference Gatti Ward. We didn't have to compare these guys to Hall of Fame sluggers. We didn't have to pretend these guys are top 10 contenders. We didn't have to lie to the public and say, well, the winner of this fight is going to get a title match. None of that mattered. Yeah. It was just about the fighters and the effort that we knew they were going to give in the ring.
Mike, what stood out to you watching those 30 minutes?
What stood out to me was just the fan reaction. At press row, I mean, you guys were busy calling the fight, but I was right behind you in press row. Everybody was, glued to what was happening in the ring. But the fan atmosphere at Belasco Theater, it's always a good atmosphere because it's a club type of show, and Golden Boy does a good job with them. But this time, it was just different. You had the feeling you were watching something special that these fans were going to be talking about for a while, telling their friends about, saying, hey man, you got to catch out the replay. That's how you build fans.
Me and Doug talked about this. On our Twitter timeline the day or two before the fight, we had more questions, more statements, more tweets about this fight than some of the other shows that weekend that were on network television. Also, there was actually a secondary market for tickets for this show. People were actually scalping them outside. And I asked Robert Diaz before the fight, was there any other network like HBO Latino or another platform that you could have put this on for more money on a bigger stage? And he said yes, but we thought it was important for this particular program to have this fight. And Mike, I think they got exactly what they wanted, Golden Boy.
Absolutely, and now everybody's talking about a rematch. Yeah. And now you can do a rematch later this year because neither fighter, there were some bumps and bruises, but no big injuries.
Right.
You could go in the fall at StubHub or something like that, and then you can get on premium network TV.
But Doug, don't you think though, when it comes to matchmaking, people always talk about styles, but it's also about caliber. If you're going to do a drag race, you always race a Volkswagen against another Volkswagen. Like you can't put a Porsche against like my Honda. These two guys are well matched because if you put either guy against an Errol Spence, let's be honest, they probably get cut up.
Yeah, they'll get chopped up. I think they'll last a bit longer than Chris Algieri and be even more competitive. But ultimately, they will be outclassed and the fight won't be as interesting. Steve, I think these guys need each other.
Best of 5?
Well,
you know what's funny?
That's a little bit unfair to them.
You know, my buddy Matt Swider texts me in the middle of the fight, and he says, "You know what? They should fight every 4 to 6 months." So I say that to Robert Diaz, and Robert says, "Steve, I don't want to get arrested, but let's be honest, though. I think a draw was just in one sense, because as you referenced, Doug, the winner doesn't necessarily win a title shot.
No.
And I think based on the fact that there's a buzz for this fight and it was so competitive, I think it is the right thing if they do it one more time for significantly more money.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it's a perfect fight to put on an HBO pay-per-view undercard.
Exactly.
Canelo in September.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely. I think that's probably what Golden Boy is thinking, but if not, it's a good boxing after dark main event or co-feature.
Mike, you were there. You probably judged a little bit closer than we did. We're going through a bunch of stuff on the broadcast. Was a draw just?
It was just. I actually had it 9-4 for, or I'm sorry, 6-4 for Kamegai. But Jesus Soto Karass brought it in that 10th round. I think he sensed he was a little behind. I think he threw 160 punches. It was some ridiculous number.
He averaged more than 100 punches.
Yeah, he threw over 1,100 punches in the fight. I mean, so him bringing it like that, and both guys just going to the final bell. It was just the perfect ending, and you just had a feeling when the first score was announced and the second score was, I called this, draw.
You know, to put this into perspective, Soto Karass threw over 1,100 punches, right? I went to a pay-per-view fight the week before. We'll talk about some other segment. Bradley, Pacquiao, where they combined, threw about 800. That's all you need to know. And again, we're not saying Pacquiao and Bradley are not several cuts above Kamegai and Soto Karass, but it goes to that point again, Doug. We should appreciate not necessarily always the caliber of fighters. You should. Sometimes what happens in a fight, that should be appreciated.
Yeah, and to me, that's, I mean, even when you talk about the elite fighters, the pound-for-pound kings of yesteryear, what made them special and what made them fan favorites was not the level of skill and the level of talent. It was the level of effort they gave during their fights. I'm talking about guys like Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns and Durant.
Yeah.
Right, they were great fighters, but they also made for great fights.
So to paraphrase Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. Crown them. Well, that's it for this segment of the 10 Count. On behalf of Doug Fischer and Michael Montero, this is Steve Kim saying till the next round, goodbye, everybody.